Like, where does the story of Mr. Tushar Gandhi start?
So I have been variously called the Gandhian genes or the Muta Gandhi and things. So I have not bothered about it.
It doesn't bother you in any
It
way.
doesn't bother me. See, I've always been very easy with it. I've always told people that I'm sorry if I disappoint you.
So I want to get to know Mahatma Gandhi through the lenses of his descendants.
We try to explore the persona of the Mahatma, which is larger than life, high up over there on a pedestal, almost like God kind of thing. And that is where the greatest injustice is done. But I said, it is my duty to show you the person, the individual, and
Make
not
him
that,
human.
yeah, I'm not the superhero. Then, after doing his metric, of course, he was married by then, and he was so much in love with his wife, and as he said in his autobiography, full of lust, that when he had to go to Shamaldas College in Bhavnagar, he couldn't even finish one term over there. He found that the English education was too difficult for him. The first thought in his mind when he is thrown out of the train is, why should I, bear with such brutality and insult? I'll go back. I have my home. I'll go back. But then, through the night, when he's sitting on that platform, he contemplates and he tells himself, I can go back. And that's why I'm thinking of going back. So there's so many thousands of my brothers and sisters in this country who every minute of their life over here have to face these kind of insults and assaults.
I will straight up ask you, from that perspective, why did not Gandhiji try to save Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru?
How much do you know Bhagat Singh? The fact is, महात्मा बन के नहीं आया. तो धीरे 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 करते करते ऐसा बना कि हम उसको महात्मा समझते हैं. The government and the police were very adamant. He said, I'm not going to complain against him. He's misguided. I want to talk to him. Although Mir Alam was arrested because eyewitnesses had seen him assaulting Bapu. And based on their statement, Mir Alam was arrested and put in prison for 2 months.
Hello and welcome everyone to yet another episode of our podcast from our channel We the People. As you guys know that the theme of our channel is to give out genuine and valuable information out in the public domain, and this is what we are going to do through yet another episode. To be great is to be misunderstood, and this goes apt and perfect regarding the person that we are going to talk about today. So today we are going to talk about Mr. Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, father of our nation, and we are going to get to know many things about his earlier days, about his role in the freedom movement, his assassination and the things that ensued after the assassination. So to talk about all of those things, today we have come to Santa Cruz, Mumbai to talk to a person that will explain us all these things in a very efficient and a very good manner. So let's get to it.
कद था उनका छोटा सा और सरपट उनकी चाल रे, दुबले से पतले से थे वो चलते सीना तान गे. वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम, वंदे मातरम.
Sir, before we start questions about Mr. Mahatma Gandhi, we want to get to know more about you. Like, where does the story of Mr. Tushar Gandhi start? So, I got to know from a source that you were born in a train.
Yeah.
So, is that true? And where does the story of Tushar Gandhi start?
Well, it starts on early morning of the 17th of January 1960, the Shegao station.
Okay.
And the train carrying my mother, she was supposed to reach Akola, where my father's aunt was a gynecologist, and I was supposed to be born in her dispensary. But, I was in a rush, so when the train reached Shegao, I was born in the train. Howrah made via Nagpur, one down. So that's where my story begins.
Sir, and we want to know about the earlier days of your childhood. Like, how did the Gandhian ideology influence you? Did you get influenced by yourself?
No, I think my circumstances played a role in it, not just because the family I was born into, but because at that time our home used to be like a guest house for all the senior Gandhians.
Okay.
And so I don't remember any time in my life when we didn't have Gandhians staying with us, big freedom fighters, senior freedom fighters, senior people in the Gandhian, the extended ashram family as we came to know about them. I can't tell you a point in my life when I said, okay, this is when I became a Gandhian or I started understanding Gandhi. Initially, I was very arrogant and I thought, I'm the great grandson of Gandhi, so I know best. And so I didn't bother to study Bapu. In many circumstances, I remember that I would bluff and try to convince people. But then I realized that people were much bigger scholars in Gandhi than I was, and it wasn't easy for me to bluff. And so I made a conscious effort to learn about him, to imbibe his ideology, understand.
But when was
his
this point
ideology.
that you started to read about him actually?
A serious study of Bapu was when I was in my late 20s. And my identity as a descendant of Bapu started coming into the public domain. Because in my childhood and things, we were very private, and all the responsibilities of the legacy were being done by my parents. So I had a very insulated childhood life, and it wasn't forced on me. But as I grew up and after my parents immigrated to the US, I was the only one from the family who was left in Mumbai. So in the mid 90s, people became aware that I was the great grandson and I was living in Mumbai. And that is when my public identity started becoming
So you had
well
to
known.
study about it.
And so then I had to, because there was a lot of curiosity. There was also at that time the anti-Gandhi campaign had started becoming very loud in society. And so every time there was a controversy raised about Bapu, the media would come to me for my comments and reactions. And I realized that I had to equip myself with correct knowledge. I couldn't keep bluffing about things. And so the serious studies happened at that time, and it helped me immensely.
So, sir, before we start questions about Bapu, I want to tell you honestly that while preparing for this interview, this was the most pressure that I felt, because asking somebody about Mahatma Gandhi and about such a great personality, so I was feeling that pressure somewhere, that what a legacy it is, and I might do or might not do any mistake regarding it while asking any question. So this legacy and this pressure regarding it, have you ever felt this, like being?
No, I was brought up with the knowledge. My grandmother, very early in my life, told me that I was very fortunate to be born into such a illustrious family. But I did not have to either put on airs that I'm somebody privileged, or I did not have to feel that I have to live up to people's expectations.
Okay.
She always used to tell me that we are ordinary people, as normal as all human beings, and that is the way we must live. So I grew up with that kind of an attitude, and I never bothered about pleasing people. Now I've reduced a bit, otherwise I was double this size. If you see my old photographs and videos, sometimes people don't recognize me. They couldn't see any resemblance or anything in Bapu. I said, I'm sorry if I disappoint you, I can't help it. So I have led a very open life according to my liking and haven't bothered about. So I've been called because during my days in college and in my young days, and even today, I'm often seen wearing blue jeans and a t-shirt
Yeah.
or a khadi shirt like this.
Yeah.
So I have been variously called the Gandhian jeans or the Mota Gandhi and things. So I'm not bothered about
It doesn't bother you in any
it
way.
doesn't bother me. I like my foods. I like non-vegetarian food. So I
You
don't
do?
hide. I don't hide that. I eat that in public. I remember there used to be there was a time when I was standing for elections from the Samajwadi Party,
Okay.
and it was the month of Ramzan when the campaign started. So almost every evening I would be invited to go to a iftar party.
Yeah.
And they found out that I loved all the kebabs and halims and all that. But in those iftar parties, the press was there in full force. So my party they put 4 or 5 volunteers around me. They don't let him go to the food while the press is over there. So they would continuously keep assuring me. They said, तुषार भाई बेफिक्र रहो, अंदर रूम में आपके लिए रखा है, इधर मत खाना करके. Because they were afraid that the press would show me eating kebabs and meat and all that, and that would be a negative publicity against me. So I said, look, I will not do that. I will not sit inside the room and enjoy the feast. If I'm going to enjoy the feast, I'll do it right over here. And that was the only time during my life that the entire Ramzan, because they were not letting me eat in public, I said, then I won't eat meat and kebabs and things like that. मैं नहीं करूँगा. मैं वही करूँगा जो मैं लोगों के सामने कर सकता हूँ. Because my grandmother always told me as a child, she told me that what you think you can't do in front of people, don't do it. Because that's wrong. Or don't hide things and do it from people.
Okay.
So I've led my life there. And so I have never felt the burden of my life. See, I've always been very easy with it. I've always told people that I'm sorry if I disappoint you. But that's the way I am. Ordinary descendant of a great individual. And you can either expect me like that or reject me.
Now we'll start to the questions about Bapu. There are certain things that I have read in my life, and during the course of this interview, I have tried to research many things.
Sure.
But one thing I understood, that this person, this great personality, cannot be understood in such a short span. In a month, in a year, it takes a lifetime to understand him. So I want to get to know Mahatma Gandhi through the lenses of his descendants and the actual history behind the person. So let's start from the earlier days, very early days of Mahatma Gandhi. So I will tell you one incident which is in the public domain, that Bapu was a very rebellious young person, and there was this incident where he stole some money, he and his friends stole some money from his father, and they went out to smoke. This carried out for a while, and then he had to pay off the debt. He had to pay it off by selling or cutting off a part of his brother's bracelet, gold bracelet. And then the burden of that thing, the guilt was so much that he felt he needed to confess it to his father. And he could not face his father, so he wrote down a letter of his confession and he gave it to his father, and his father literally cried that day. Bapu wrote in the letter that I will never repeat such mistakes, you can give me adequate punishment for it. And such a pure emotion. So what was it regarding his childhood that you would like to share with us?
You see, we must all understand, what happens is when we decide to study him, we try to explore the persona of the Mahatma, which is larger than life, high up over there on a pedestal, almost like God kind of thing. And that is where the greatest injustice is done to Mohandas Gandhi. And so I have made it a mission in my life to demystify him from the Mahatma and explain to people that he was as ordinary as all of us. He became great because he accepted his ordinariness. And he said that I will strive to be better. than what I am today. Tomorrow I will be better than what I am today. And he continued in that quest all his life, honestly not repeating the mistakes that he committed. Now, the incident you told about his childhood where he stole from his father and then confessed about it.
Yeah.
It was not merely a confession. If you look at it from that day onwards and you look at his life from that day onwards, you will not find an instance where he has ever been dishonest or has taken something that did not belong to him. So the promises that he made, whenever he admitted to having made a mistake,
He did
the
not
promise that he made was not to repeat it. And he never ever repeated those mistakes again. And that is where he got better and better and better. We don't understand that, the importance of that journey. And that is where what he said, that the means are as important as the objective,
Yeah.
was that if you don't use honest means, then there will be dishonesty in everything you do. So you have to be very careful, even if it is difficult. You have to work ethically. You look at politics today, and you will notice that because their whole ideology is false, so their campaign is on lies, their promises are untrustworthy, and that is where their administration becomes flawed. And it's so easy to find out when you're close to a politician. You see all the flaws, all the weaknesses, all the errors in that person, and you see them being repeated in their official life.
Yeah.
With Mohandas Gandhi, that was not the case. And that is where he inspired people, because he didn't sit and say, okay, I'm your guru, I'm going to teach you things. He said, you want to learn? Observe me, do what I do. And that was so much more convincing for people. So that is where whenever I talk about my great-grandfather, I've been criticized many a time because I refer to him as Mohandas Gandhi. And people say कि कैसा मुंहफड़ है अपने बुजुर्ग का नाम लेके बात करते हैं. But I said, it is my duty to show you the person, the individual, and
Make
not
him
that.
human.
Yeah, I'm not the superhero. And so when I introduce the individual to you, then you can relate to him.
Yeah.
You know, when I talk about Mohandas Gandhi to the youth, they open up more than if I were to go and tell them about Mahatma Gandhi. Because they will say, यार ये महात्मा गांधी तो हमारी टेक्स्ट बुक में भी था, ये वही घिसी-पिटी बातें करेगा. But when I go and talk about Mohandas Gandhi and his failures, then they start seeing those in their own lives. And if you study the early part of his life, you will see that he went through a series of failures, right up to the time when he went to South Africa.
What were those failures like?
See, he was a very insecure child. He didn't know what he wanted to do. One day he wanted to become a doctor, then his mother said, we are Vaishnavas and you can't be cutting bodies and working with blood and bones and all that. So you can't do that. So he said, okay, then I won't do that. Then after doing his metric, of course he was married by then. And he was so much in love with his wife and as he said in his autobiography, full of lust, that when he had to go to Shamaldas College in Bhavnagar, he couldn't even finish one term over there. He found that the English education was too difficult for him and he kept pining for his wife. So at the end of the first term he dropped out and ran away and he told his family, I can't cope with these studies. And he was the last hope of his family because both the elder brothers had not taken higher education.
Yeah.
And so they had very low level employment in the administration. And the family was, because of Uttam Chand Gandhi and Karam Chand Gandhi, who were both divans in principalities in Kathiawar. They were hoping that at least one son would become a divan, so the family's prestige would be there. So when Mohandas dropped out of his college, that dream was also shattered. So he failed over there. Then somebody said that if he becomes a barrister, becomes a lawyer, then his chances of becoming a diwan are better. So he should go to London. So the glamour of going to London was more than the confidence of. See, you must remember that just a year before that he dropped out saying I can't cope with English studies. And here he's saying I'll go to England and study over there. So far away from home, so far away from family, and completely English medium. Nothing. They can't be any Gujarati over there. And still he's saying I'll do it. Then he becomes a barrister. Comes back. He runs away from the court in his first appearance in court. And all this is mentioned in his autobiography. You see, the thing is, all his failures, he writes them honestly in his autobiography and said, see, I failed at this, I failed at that. He describes the whole event when he ran out of the court in Mumbai because he was so nervous and so afraid of speaking over there that he abandoned his client, he abandoned his papers, his books, and the whole courtroom was packed because the British trained barrister was making his debut in court. So the whole bar association was sitting over there to see how he performs. And he completely failed. The result was he had to shut down his office and go back to Rajkot. And he started writing petitions and applications and things, which would earn him anna or two, which was not even enough to pay his debt. So finally he gets that opportunity to go to South Africa too, because an Indian Gujarati businessman requires an Indian lawyer who understands the Indian way of doing business and is trained in the British law system. So Mohandas Gandhi fits that. Then he goes over there. The first thought in his mind when he is thrown out of the train is, why should I bear with such brutality and insult? I'll go back, I have my home, I'll go back. But then, through the night when he's sitting on that platform, he contemplates and he tells himself, I can go back. And that's why I'm thinking of going back. But there's so many thousands of my brothers and sisters in this country who every minute of their life over here have to face these kind of insults and assaults. They can't go back. They have to just suffer this indignity. So it's my duty to fight, not only to take revenge for my insult, but to fight for their rights. And that is where the change occurs, from the man who has accepted failure all the time to somebody who said, no, I'm not, this is it. Now I will not budge. It takes great courage to do that.
But where does this quality of not budging, or you said that transitioning? So I know an incident about him in South Africa where we say is transforming another person's thought process. There is this incident about Mir Alam that I have read, that Gandhi ji was attacked and he brutally beat up Bapu. Then he was bleeding, he fell unconscious, and the first thing Bapu said after waking up was, where is Mir Alam? Don't do anything to him, I have forgiven him.
He refused to file charges against Mir Alam, although the government and the police were very adamant. He said, I'm not going to complain against him, he's misguided, I want to talk to him. Although Mir Alam was arrested because eyewitnesses had seen him assaulting Bapu. And based on their statement, Mir Alam was arrested and put in prison for 2 months. But Bapu refused to file a complaint, and so Mir Alam got away with just unruly behavior for 2 months.
But that transformed
him. And when he came out, when Bapu launched the Satyagraha to burn the parcels, Mir Alam came and hugged him and he said, I misunderstood you. And henceforth, I will be your shadow. And till the time Bapu lived in South Africa, Mir Alam stood at his back protecting him. He said, I will not, I know you have enemies, and henceforth,
I'll protect you.
the blows that are aimed at you will be on me, not on you. Kind of thing. So that was the kind of transformation. Now you ask me where he got that power to resist.
Exactly what I was going to.
That was from his mother. In his childhood, his mother was very religious, Putliba, and she would take the most difficult vows and follow religious vows and follow them. And amongst the Vaishnavas, there is this thing called Chaturmas, where for 4 months they do severe fasting, and right from skipping a meal to skipping a whole day without food and things happen. One of the vows that his mother took was that she would only eat after praying to the sun. And Porbandar during the monsoons, where Chaturmas used to fall, used to have days of clouded skies, where the sun wouldn't break through the clouds at all. And so the mother would say, okay, if I can't pray to the sun, I won't eat. But the children would patrol the terrace of their home. And if there was a break in the clouds, they would run down and tell their mother that, there's a break in the clouds and we can see the sun, come and pray. But if she was busy doing some work or something, she'd say, no, I have to finish my chore. I can't come now. And by the time she finished the chore, maybe the clouds would have covered the sun. And the children would say, mother, but you could have prayed and then eaten. She'd say, no, I don't think today the gods want me to eat, so I fast. So she would be very steadfast, and it would happen that she would fast for 24 hours, sometimes 36 hours, sometimes even more than that. And Mohan used to see how and he used to see that she never said कि आज मैंने fast किया है, मुझे बहुत कमजोरी आ गई है, अब मैं काम नहीं कर सकती. She used to look after the entire big family, and she would do all her chores while she would be hungry and not eat. And that is where he discovered the strength of the soul, the moral strength of a human being rather than the physical strength. And that is where his own strength, he came to understand his own strength, that he did not need muscles. He needed ethics, he needed morality. And that is where the whole transformation became what we think is so spectacular. It's a gradual process born out of the initial failures, the initial loathing that he must have felt, that I continue to fail, I continue to fail. He must have hated it. You talked about his childhood. There in his autobiography itself he has written that he, in his childhood and his early youth, he thought he was a failure and he contemplated suicide with his friends.
Yeah.
And so there was that element of him hating what he was. But instead of pitying himself, he decided that no, I don't like this, so I'm going to change and make myself better. And that journey is what should inspire the youth.
Yeah.
Not that Mahatma, because they'll say, अरे यार हम तो नहीं बन सकते ना, ये तो एकदम महात्मा बन के आ गए. The fact is महात्मा बन के नहीं आया. तो धीरे धीरे करते करते ऐसा बना कि हम उसको महात्मा समझते हैं. That journey is very important.
So sir, while talking about this topic, when we research about Bapu, and in today's world, as we are from a younger generation and we talk to people about, from a same age, there are certain misconceptions, misinformation about Bapu. In public domain, it is to a larger extent. I am saying misinformation, misconception because I know certain things which whenever I get a chance, I try to explain it to the other person. But many times I don't find that much success in convincing the other person because he feels that whatever he has read or he has understood to any means is correct, it is true. I will straight up ask you, from that perspective, why did not Gandhiji try to save Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev and Rajguru? Why did not Gandhiji try his best that they were executed and Gandhiji did not do a single thing to try to save them? So what is the story behind it? Did this actually happen?
Well, my question, I will start my answer with a question. how much do you know Bhagat Singh? And if you knew Bhagat Singh, do you think Bhagat Singh would have accepted an intervention by Gandhi to find mercy for him? Bhagat Singh, who did not accept or did not bother to defend himself in court. He, on the very first day of his trial, he got up and said, I have committed a crime, you give me punishment. Bhagat Singh, who refused to file a mercy petition himself. Bhagat Singh, who refused to allow his parents to file a mercy petition for him. Do you think he would have accepted Gandhi's mercy petition?
Not at all.
The man who committed the act which the British saw as a crime, but for us Indians it was one of the greatest heroic deeds of the freedom movement. With the intention that I will be arrested, he did not try to escape. With the intention of being arrested, being prosecuted, being allowed in court to make his statement. He wanted that opportunity to make his statement public and accept the worst punishment. He knew that the only punishment he can get for that was death. And despite that knowledge, he refused. Do you think Bhagat Singh would have allowed Bapu or accepted if Bapu had got mercy for him? Would Bhagat Singh have accepted?
Never.
He would not have, because he was not like Savarkar, who buckled down and started asking for mercy from the very next year of his incarceration. He was a revolutionary who said, I will set an example by my martyrdom. And that's why I want to become a martyr. Having said all this, we must understand that at that point of time, Bapu was in negotiations with the Viceroy Irwin. And if you see the
Gandhi impact.
Irwin Gandhi negotiation, various places it has been mentioned that Bapu verbally pleaded with Irwin, saying that you are being too harsh on these young people. They are freedom fighters and they are essential for India's future. So he said, I am not asking you to pardon them. All I am saying is be lenient and convert their death sentences into life sentences. Don't execute them. Bapu said that verbally, which is minuted, and Bapu wrote to Irwin also in the letters that he wrote during that time. He mentioned, he said, I pleaded with you for the young people, pardon, mercy for the young people. Please consider that. So it wasn't just once, it wasn't just twice.
It's multiple
There were
times.
four recorded letters in which he pleads for that. So he did plead for it. But Bhagat Singh would never have accepted. That is what we must understand. Bhagat Singh wanted or felt that by his martyrdom he would inspire the youth to follow his path. But you see, the thing is, only a few people have the courage to lay down their lives. It's very easy to stand up and say, "मैं जान दे दूँगा, मैं जान दे दूँगा." But those people who say, "मैं जान दे दूँगा," never give their lives. It is at that very moment that heroic fervor arises and you give your life and then you become a martyr. And Bhagat Singh was like that. So if somebody betrayed Bhagat Singh, it was the people of India who did not follow his example and take the revolutionary path. Not Gandhi. Gandhi actually felt a loss because he felt that the three of them at least could have been a force multiplier for him.
But do you think he could have done more?
No, I don't think he could have done any more because you see the thing is that everybody thinks he's a Mahatma and he could have done miracles. And so they think that if he tried he could have done it. And that's why the anger that he didn't try it. He tried what he could to the best of his ability. But you must also understand that the British never forgave anybody who committed violence against them. See, Indians were aliens. We were from a different race. You look at the history of the British Empire. They slaughtered the Scottish. The Scottish were their cousins. But when the Scottish fought a war against the English, they mercilessly slaughtered the entire Scottish Highlander clans. They didn't show any mercy to them. When the Irish Republican Army fought with the British, for every British person that the IRA killed, the British forces killed 10 of them in retaliation. They have never ever allowed or shown mercy towards people who acted with violence. They are that kind of people. The only reason that Bapu succeeded was that they were baffled by this non-violence and didn't know, what to do because if they shot them like they shot the people in Jallianwala Bagh, they got discredited all over the world. So they didn't know how to respond. So they considered Bhagat Singh to be somebody who had used violence against them, and their need for revenge would not have allowed them to show mercy to him. And so all these things must be understood before we sit down and condemn Bapu saying he didn't save Bhagat Singh.